I want to start this part with one Christmas book, one book with fairy, and then we will talk about my flower colorings. So here I have Baker's Dozen coloring book and it's a Christmas story. Designs are absolutely amazing. Pictures by Wendy Edelstone. I think that originally they were made with watercolor and then they were transformed into a grayscale book. So by themselves they are absolutely beautiful. Just look at this beautiful scenery of the old town and the Santa Claus here. But when I got the book, I was absolutely without any ideas how to color grayscale at all and how to color such grayscale. It's already quite beautiful, so I was thinking that why would I touch such beautiful pictures, and what I can do is just to mess up. They are already quite nice. It was quite interesting to study in such grayscale pictures actually where were the lightest parts, how strong have to be contrast in black and white. It's much more easy to uh, analyze pictures. But regarding coloring, I think that now when I am a little bit more experienced, it would be easier for me. But at the moment when I got the book, I managed to do just one page. Here I tested which pencils would be better for masking darker and lighter areas of gray, so it was page for a little test. And then I did one finished picture. It's here. I don't know what to say. When I colored it, I realized that to color grayscale actually 10 times easier and 5 times quicker comparing to normal page, when you don't have to think about shading, about how strong have to be contrast, when you just have to think about colors. For me it's much easier, but at the same time it's a lesser amount of challenge, so maybe not as interesting as regular coloring. Yes, to do grayscale it's more relaxing, so from time to time I can do such pictures. But still, in this book I prefer to look at the pictures and just to admire the style of the artist. I have them here in black and I have these examples in full color, which are also quite perfect, and I don't know if I would return to it, maybe one day, but for now I am just happy to look at the black and white pictures. Next I have my only book by Barbara Lanza. I think that it was one of my first books printed on Amazon paper, so when I got it I was disappointed in quality of paper. I did love designs, but I didn't know what to use. At the moment when I got it, I had color softs, I had Prismacolors and couple of polychromos pencils and budget pencils. So any of them, they were far from perfect on this paper. I was reluctant to use polychromos for the big areas of the background. They were too precious for me. Prismacolors weren't quite good. Only with huge amount of blender I was able to cover paper. So I did only one page. And as I said, I indeed was disappointed that such beautiful designs are printed on this paper. But now, after a couple of years, I got bigger amount of pencils, and pencils like Sucolor, like Artisan. Now I own them and they are not bad on this paper. If I can use them in Selina Fennec, if I can use them in other books printed on Amazon paper, I definitely will be able to use them here. So now when I remembered about this book, then I definitely will try to color here something, because some of the pages, they are very beautiful. I do love here all the botanical details, and some of the fairies and little creatures, their friends, they also quite nice. So I will try not to put it aside for a long time. I need to color more of Barbara Lanza because she is a really good illustrator. And now let's talk about my books with flowers. The first one is this Creative Haven book by Ruth Sofer. I think that Ruth has at least couple of other books, Tropical Bloom and Desert Bloom, and they all feature flowers in huge size. When I first got the book and it was a present, I was slightly confused how to color such huge flowers, if it would be interesting, and how much pencils I would need to color at least one flower. But then I realized that it actually can be very relaxing coloring when you just want to play with bright colors, when you don't have to think strong about something creative. You just have to look at reference pictures, select main colors traditional for the flowers. Fortunately, here we have names of the flowers. So you watch at the reference photos, you select main colors, then some colors which you can use for details, for additional highlights, color accents, and then according to the main color you can select color for the background. Maybe to maintain some atmosphere, like I did on one of the pictures where we had the night flower. Here we have beautiful cacti flower, and they are famous not only because they are huge, probably the biggest cacti flowers in the world, but also they are famous because they bloom only during the night time, and that's what I tried to show with the very dark blue, almost black background. Here I decided that my main media will be budget color pencils like Sucolor and Arteza. They both work relatively well on the Creative Haven paper, and I don't think that we need any complicated blading. Baby blending on this paper of the budget pencils. It's decent, not perfect but decent. But at least they are able to cover paper nicely, even with one or two layers, and they are capable to give you quite intense and beautiful colors, exactly what you need for coloring these flowers. And also for budget pencils, it doesn't bother me that I color even the background, and I spend bigger amount of pencil pigment here. Of course, now when I color flowers, I try to get rid of the black lines, sometimes with uh, Posca pens. If I don't have matching color of Posca, then I switch to some acrylic paint or gouache, and with a very thin brush I try to outline petals and leaves to create more realistic look. So for me it's books for relaxation. You can see that we have big flower. We don't have to think about something regarding colors. You can do pink rose, you can do orange rose, everything you can. The color palette you will get from nature. You just need to select colors from any of your desired set. Then you have to think about a little bit about shading, like when one petal casts shadow on the petals beneath. And after such small analyzing, you can start your relaxing coloring. I never had problems in this book, even if I did only 3 pages here. This one definitely was made with a blend of Arteza. Arteza has nice greens and nice violet colors, and some Star Joy probably for the background, because I wanted this very dark, almost black pine green color, and I managed to find it in Sucolor set. Now I think that maybe I had to use more white paint around these narrow petals, but even now I like it. I hope that now when I finally got myself set of felty pens and fine liners, I will be able to color these pictures better, because I will be able to do more of this texture on top of the pencils with felty pens or with fine liners. So from January, or maybe from March, when we actually start to uh, the period when we wait for flowers, then I will be coloring more in this book. And finally I have my brightest flower in this book. It's called Adonis or Pheasant's eye. I think that I selected it because I loved its shape and I actually never heard about such flower, so it was interesting to learn. I was attracted to its very bright magenta red petals and I decided to color it. You can see that nothing complicated, you just work with bright colors, you can think about anything pleasant, you don't have to be very invested on such um, easy designs, not simplified yet, not simplified designs, but relatively simple. When I color something based on reference pictures, I never have big problems with coloring. That's when I start to invent color palette from my head. That's where when I have to be quite attentive and really invested into coloring. But this one is for relaxation. Of course, next I have my flower year book, which is with me from the very beginning of my coloring hobby. Again, it was one of the first books which I got from Book Depository. I was totally in love with the style of L.Duly, and when I got it, I decided to color it in order. I was fortunate to get it in the end of the year, so in January I was ready to start coloring. During the first year, I mostly did these title pages and some smaller designs. You will see the big difference in this book between style of my coloring on the earlier pictures and on my latest designs. I hope that my recent pictures, they look a little bit better. I think that the biggest difference is that now I try to do stronger contrast. I am not afraid to use darker colors for shading, and in such way my flowers and the whole composition look more three-dimensional. So let's start from the first page, and here we have this tiny butterfly, flowers. I colored these title pages, then I made some break from coloring in this book because I wasn't happy with the selection of greens in Prismacolor. They have many good pencils, but still I wanted more greens. I think that more greens is a motto of my life. When I look at them for some new pencil set, I always start from checking their greens. If greens are good and interesting for me, then I will think about other colors, and probably if there would be sets of 100 green colors, that would be my immediate purchase. If you love to color botanical designs, I think that you would agree with me. Now let me adjust my camera, stop talking, and let's watch the finished pictures. Sometimes I have this crazy idea that if I would purchase the second copy of the book, now I would be able to do more professional, more interesting looking flowers, but then I think that I have so many other beautiful books. Many of them have beautiful flowers, so stop thinking such things about this one. Start to color Floribunda and let's enjoy pictures as they are. Some of them are far from perfect, some of them of course could be improved, but you know my rule never to return to the pictures which I once finished. So of course some of them look quite simple, and probably now I would add something for the background. At least I would add more plants behind the plants created by L.Duly, but they are just steps of my improving in coloring, and I do love these designs. I think that when I finally purchased polychromos pencils and I started to purchase individually from their green range of pencils, my coloring here improved quite significantly. That was one of the first pictures which I posted on my Patreon, I believe, if I remember correctly. Anyway, you can see here that I started to carefully mask black lines, at least on the flowers, and they immediately started to look much better. They started to pop up on the mass of the various greens, and I tried now to be more careful to mask black lines carefully on the flowers. This one I colored completely with watercolors. It's a sad thing that I actually discovered that in this book you can use watercolors, but I discovered it when two-thirds of the book was already finished. I think that it would be fun to color the whole book with watercolors only, because paper here it's good both for Inktense pencils and for watercolor. If you want to practice, that's one of the book where you can definitely use watercolor. It's another spread which I actually really love. I do love how these bluebells look uh, among the green leaves, and the color palette, which is more limited comparing to our other flower compositions here, it's also good. Very good spring picture. In this book I deliberately decided to do a very light backgrounds. Sometimes I don't do them for the simplified designs for this individual flowers, and if I do background, they are always very light, just to uh, create good match to the main colors of the image. You know that soft pastel isn't my favorite media for the backgrounds, but in this book I used it a lot. I think that when you just add a little bit of color behind flowers, it can help you to show the mood of the page. If I add a little bit of yellow, then I want to represent sunny day. Sometimes I use quite traditional pastel blue for the uh, daylight. Nothing fancy. Here I tried to do fancy background with colored pencils, the brass with pencils, and the background everything colored with polychromos, and you can see that I ran out of passion. I think that this pencil background, it tired me so much that I decided that I will finish it another day. And this poor page is waiting already for a year. Here I struggled with these flowers. I wanted to do a very tender apple blossom flowers, but I don't think that I added enough white. I concentrated on added peach color, very light yellow, but maybe I had to use a little bit more white, and then flowers will look more fresh. But still, it was interesting to do. Maybe when I will finally do this tiny design, I will try to use bigger amount of white and a lesser amount of peach around the center, and then I will be fully satisfied with the flowers. Again, you can see how I used soft pastel. This one I tried to transform into a page from the ancient botanical atlas, so around the flowers designed by L.Duly, I draw my own elements like we can find in botanical atlas. You know that we can usually see individual parts of the flower, petals, seeds, roots, and I studied these three flowers and I added in sepia colors. I think that I managed to do something like botanical atlas. This one I colored with watercolors, and that's where I enjoyed immensely how paints behave on this paper. I don't know if all the editions of this book are printed on the same paper, but book which I own, it's really good with water-based media. Here I made an exception for the backgrounds. You can see that it's one of the few colorful backgrounds. I think that I again used pencils and it was terrible on the background here. I wanted to show that maybe we have evening flowers, especially those primroses. Maybe I wanted to create better contrast for this very light flowers, so on the dark background of course they pop up. But as I'm not happy with the coverage with this indifferent blue, probably I'm not happy with the whole page. Even if some elements of it I do love, but the whole look not perfect. This one I do love because it was quite fun to color these flowers. I do love them, they look always very bright and festive, and they have very interesting structure. That's the design of which I am really very proud of. I already made video a couple of days ago where I included these poppies into my top best finished pictures of this year, and there I explained that with poppies I always had some difficulties. I wasn't able to show properly the shape of the flower, how transparent and delicate are leaves with all those curved edges and all those structure when one leaf creates shadow beneath, so we need to show the levels of these petals. So only when I started to use quite contrast colors on the flowers, starting from a very light orange and to quite intense red, I started to do better poppies. With magenta poppies I had a lesser amount of problems here, it was easier to do, but with red I think that it was my first successfully finished poppy flowers, which I really love. I do love this September page, probably my favorite among the month pages, because I do love the berries here and flowers. Also leaves are not bad. I will leave you a link to this coloring in the end of the video. I remember that I did this one with a lot of pleasure because the horse chestnut, it's a symbol of my city. We have a lot of such trees around. Even if in my garden near my house I have huge chestnut tree and it looks amazing during May day, during the whole May when the tree is in bloom, very spectacular. During the whole May Kiev is very beautiful city because of the lilac and because of the horse chestnut trees, and of course together with rowan. Sorry guys, sometimes in the end of the day I even forget the Russian words and I forgot English, of course. So the rowan, if I'm not mistaken, it creates nice bright spots here on the page. Nice flower composition. Many similar flowers I remember in the garden of my grandma. And here we have fuchsia. The fun thing is that I think that I learned how to more or less correctly pronounce the fuchsia after 3 years of mistakenly calling them just like we call them in Russian, because in Russian we call them fuchsia. So I was sure that in English we need to do the same thing. I hope that now I will remember that they are actually fuchsia in English. Anyway, I love them and I even tried to grow them myself. Unfortunately, my balcony isn't the perfect area for them, not enough lighting, but I learned a lot about variety of their colors, both of the flowers and leaves, that very frequently leaves they have a little bit of bordeaux or red colors near the stems and stamens. So I try to show it here on the various flowers. Finally, I have this October finished recently. It was my last month's page. All others I did a couple of years ago. This one is a total failure when I tried to use watercolor for the leaves. It's not because of the quality of the paper, it's just because I didn't know how to do various green leaves, so the fault is mine, not the paper. Next we have a relatively good page where I used mix of regular pencils and even some ink tents. This one I do love. I love to color oaks, and I decided that as we have huge amount of leaves, to do them all in similar palette would be quite boring, so I divided them into green and more yellow-red variety. Here I tested ink tents, and on this paper they worked magnificently, totally different comparing to what I was able to achieve with them in Lizzie Mary Cullen's book. Here they look definitely very close to the regular watercolors, so I started to appreciate ink tents much more after I tried them in this book. Next I have another month which I really love, this November with berries. Also I think that one of my most successful colorings in this book. I especially love this purple violet berries together with orange leaves. Here I wasn't sure what to do with the background because the composition was heavily moved to the right, not well balanced on the spread, so I decided to add another name of the month along the left side, and I even added tiny leaves and oaks here. This one I did with Derwent graphitins, and here I use them in various ways. Some areas I colored like with normal watercolor pencils on the paper and then applying water, and for the brighter areas like on these flowers I took pigment directly from the pencil core with brush to get pencil without graphite, without this gray undertone, so I had more bright and more muted colors here, and it really helped me to learn my graphitins better. Finally we have December. Not very happy with the bird, but the rest is not bad. And you can see that the book is almost finished. I just need to finish those couple of unfinished pictures and tiny pictures with dragonflies and with roses. I do love this winter wreath, quite nice. I especially love these leaves around the berries. You can see that when I need to color wreath or composition with variety of leaves, I always try to use various green combos. Some warm green, almost olive green, some grey green, and in such way by using various hues of green, I try to do less boring design if we need to color a lot of leaves. At least they have different shades of green. Another simple but nice design here. Of course I do love how I did very delicate shading on berries and how I outlined them with white, so they really look three-dimensional. When I colored in this book, I promised myself that I will purchase Floribunda by L.Duly, but I won't touch it until I finish this one. Unfortunately, I hadn't maintained this promise, and this fall, I finally started Floribunda when I realized that this one is almost finished and I can enjoy coloring flowers more in L.Duly books. So now I will try to adjust my camera to the huge size of Floribunda, and I will show you two designs which I managed to color here. Okay, let me show you this one. Actually, we can go closer. I do love that mostly we have these round designs. They are quite interesting And I do love that here we have bigger variety of garden flowers. I would say that in flower year we have more wild flowers, and here of course garden flowers. So they are more colorful, more interesting to color, bigger variety of colors to use. And even if in flower year my favorite pencils are definitely polychromos, I use Prismacolors as an additional color when I need very light green or a very light peach or yellow, but still polychromos are better for me on that paper. Here I'm not sure. I did 2 pages with polychromos and I am not happy how they behaved on this almost cardstock. I think that Prismacolors would be much better choice. So definitely for all my future colorings I will try to use Prismacolors. But I am happy with the pictures which I did here. One was made in the end of summer, beginning of the fall season, and you can see it from the colors. Even if we have here peony, we also have here dahlia, and dahlia is one of my favorite flowers. I am fortunate that around my birthday in August we have a lot of dahlias, and I love them in all their colors. Here I decided to use this red with very dark centers of the petals to create good contrast to the lighter flowers around. In the beginning I wasn't sure which color to select for the peony. In the end I remembered that when I visited China I actually saw yellow peony and they looked quite good. I don't know why they are not so popular here. We mostly have pink, white and dark red peonies. Maybe they are more difficult to grow and they require slightly different weather, but I saw them and I wanted to put this memory onto paper, so that's why my peony is yellow. And it also matches other flowers here. It's another reason. And I did this much calmer rest with cornflowers. I do love cornflowers, so I wanted to color them. Also here we have a lot of sweet pea, and I decided that with such big amount of flowers I will divide them into 2 colors. I don't know what to say. Polychromos pencils mostly, and here I tried to mask some of the black lines, at least on the along the edges of petals. Here I try to emphasize all the folds on the very delicate petals of the sweet pea. They have highlights where light is coming through the petal. They have lighter areas where petal is curved or bended. So I really worked on their shape, tried not to make them flat and more three-dimensional. I'm quite proud of both my works here. I would color more, but then started fall season, winter season. I think that when will be spring and summer, I will be more inspired for the bright flower compositions. Thank you for watching this flower video. I don't know, maybe the next one will be about books where I am able to use watercolor. Thank you for watching and until the next series.